Ladies and gentlemen, it has come to this. Mystery Meat, the king of all kings, returns to the upper qualification of yet another tournament. And he's facing Week 7. We've seen this matchup before, but it's been a long while, Mesk. So let's see what happens this time around. It's a best of 5, and we start on Rageslave. Your opening thoughts?
Well, Meat stopped playing when I was here last.
Yes.
And he never came back since then until now. So that is a substantially long time for him not to play.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, he came back for your birthday. That was his return.
Yeah. So, but I feel like there's some things that, like, once you get acclimated to them, it's kind of like just swimming or picking up a bike or whatever. You're going to kind of get used to it, which is going to be like the general like mechanics of the game. So I'm expecting that to still be pretty solid because I think he was practicing at least a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he grinded himself back in. I guess before we really officially start this cast, I should quickly mention the run that everybody has had to get to this point, zeroing in particularly on these two players. Mystery Meat dropped his opening match in this whole qualifier against Dead Infested, who is not known as like a Mystery Meat level caliber opponent. So the fact that Dead Infested was already taking it to him, I thought, oh man, this could bode very poorly for our beloved Meat. And yet he did reverse sweep that series, so he has not dropped a series yet. His only other map loss was to Shopkeeper Dog, and that was after 2-0ing Jack Ulansky, who you've seen as a Zerg player. You know, he's a fairly reasonable skill level. I was talking before this tournament started about how I would love to see him make it through. It makes sense. He seems like the player that is most likely to exceed my expectations and jump up to Class 2, and yet Mystery Meat 2-0s him. I haven't seen the nature of those games. I only have the result to go by, so I don't know how those went. But I did watch the Shopkeeper Dog set, and Mystery Meat had some very interesting TVT builds, including a lot of mass Wraith play. So pretty cool stuff all in all. I casted that with Jujic. It was a good set. Now we come to Week 7's run in the tournament, and he... unlike Mystery Meat, actually had a bye the first round. He 2-0'd Smarty Cakes, who's been grinding it out as a Protoss, and then he 2-0'd 3 Crow, who had some very interesting vassal cheeses. So, he had to go against some unorthodox Protoss players, but this will be his first non-Protoss opponent, and he hasn't dropped a map yet. So, Week 7 coming in here as the upper seed. After their initial bans, he selected Rageslave as the first map. So that's already interesting, because I actually didn't expect Veek to like Rageslave, so I'm very interested in seeing how that one goes. In fact, let me just confirm that is the right one, because I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that we started on Cold Sweat, so I think maybe I just got the wrong replay or something. Yeah, okay. So I'm incorrect. Let me just rehost that one, because that's not even the right one. So, yeah, I was going to say, Rageslave definitely seems like a Mystery Meat pick, but I'll go ahead and confirm that now, since we're talking about it. Overall, I would just say that looking at the way that the matches went, it was Cold Sweat into Genesis Y, and Rageslave was our third map. So that means Veek did pick it, but he picked it second. And that's already kind of interesting. Now, Cold Sweat's a map he made. It does make sense that he would want to pick it. Our Decider is another map he made, Impetus. So if this goes the full 5 set, we're talking about a situation where we're bookending the set with Week 7 maps. So, home field advantage and all that.
The thing about Mystery Meat, though, is that he was beating the blind. So he was the top class. And I think that if he had been playing from then till now and stayed consistent with that, he would still be the top class. So I think what's going to probably be more difficult for him, in the same way it was for me getting acclimated to casting again, is the fact that the add-ons, the early eco all changed. In fact, those games that you said you had already casted that I ended up casting and just didn't process as a result, we had both the Protoss going double embassy.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And that was I was like, what the fuck is going on? This is a completely different game now. Like, it just felt so weird that the early game kind of completely changed. And then obviously, the Zerg tier 1 all completely changed, and a lot of the units also completely changed, like the Azura core. So the stuff you would normally do against it's completely different. So getting acclimated to all that, it's definitely the part that's going to be really rough for him to get to, whereas Veek has been fairly consistent as far as I know. So he definitely can possibly use that opportunity to knowledge check Mystery Meat quite a bit in this. And Veek is random in this, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
So that's even more potentially volatile, depending on what practice partners Mystery Meat has had.
Yeah, that's fair. I think he told me, so Mystery Meat said that his versus Zerg he was pretty comfortable in, and versus Protoss he had not as much experience, and versus Terran I mean, it really was only like Ramen was actually AFK for a bit. So our top Terran was actually like, I guess, hit him up when he rolled it as random. And then other than that, it was Shopkeeper Dog, right? Who he later played like at some point in this tournament. So Mr. B didn't get much versus T experience there. So, hey, I say we get started in this set and see how things begin. And yeah, I'm also interested in that random factor that you talked about. Like, is Veek going to be able to get it to him? It looks like, I just saw it for a flash there. He is Protoss in the bottom right. Oh god, I don't know what this color is though. This must be... Is this Aerolite yellow? No, it's light olive. Okay, well, I was a little bit off there. Aerolite's a little bit brighter. Yeah, so now we're going over to Mystery Meat, who... Oh, is this cornflower blue? No, it's midnight green. Dude, I would never have guessed that. I guess that I should have known based on the tone of the... There's like a little blob next to that unreadable symbol on the Ministry. There's like a little bit of discoloration. Symbol. Yeah, I feel like that's probably the giveaway that's midnight green. Anyway, now that we're past the important stuff, we can talk about the less important stuff, like what the build orders are going to be. Yeah. I feel like V could definitely end up going for some kind of gateway-oriented play here. He does seem to like he's attuned to what Arbu's Budesh has been, basically cooking up for a while. I think
every single Protoss game I have seen, with the exception of like one, it has been Hierophant first.
Interesting.
Other than the games that you just build only like vassals or whatever, and then Free Crow, who's basically doing the same thing. Yeah. But like Arbas and like any of the other pros are almost always, at least the first unit is usually the Hierophant. And I think the Protoss is probably the race that has changed the least since Mystery Meat was playing last. But the build orders are definitely different, and I think the cost for like the embassy is probably what changed, and probably what changed a lot of it around. But overall, like how the units work is still the same, except for the Ecclesiast being a lot stronger now.
Well, it's funny because you were talking earlier about how certain units changed a lot, but really I think it's the meta that changed a lot. And here, Mystery Meat has gone for Quarry first, followed up by a Fulcrum.
It's really greedy.
Yeah, so
that's expensive.
That is, yeah. I thought maybe hold on a second. Am I gonna have to start talking about how this replay is bugged? Like, who the hell would have made a Quarry first? But no, that's really him. So he's got to trade off the Fulcrum Maker because of the incessant harassment that Veek has been doing. And this is what happens if you go Quarry first. You don't have anything to deal with the scribe. So
it is a Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant shuts down the Vulture. I feel like it was probably a meta response to the Vulture first openings because they can't really get past it. It doesn't really do that much damage. So if the Terran goes like hard into Fulcrum, then you start needing a lot more, which usually from what I've seen with like Nablime and Arbas is that it turns into like Hierophant Ecclesiast, which is really awkward because they're both ranged. And if the Terran goes like all Cyclops, then you're not really going to be inside of them because you're moving around, and then the Ecclesiasts aren't really helping you as much. So it can be a little awkward, but at the same time, though, like the Vultures don't get to do much early on at this point. But at the same time, unless the map distance is a little closer, the Hierophants can't really do a lot either. And what I kind of noticed about, I think it was Hit 'em Up, playing Terran, is that he would not move out with his early Vultures at all. He just wouldn't bother. There was no point because he couldn't do anything. He would sit here just like Mystery Meat is doing right now with the mines on the ramp. And you would have precisely what's happening right now, which is this lull in activity. But what Hit 'em Up does is he delays his tier 2 forever. He doesn't get tier 2 until like 15 minutes into the game. He will expand and build tons of workers, and he will just keep adding fulcrums. Every expansion is going to see like another 3 or 4 fulcrums, and then eventually he'll get palladiums. But he will hold off on that tier 2 for as long as possible and just sand just tons and tons of Cyclops and Vultures up. And the one match versus it was Arbas who went like Demiurges fairly early on, and it was like 4, 5, 6 Demiurges against like walls of Vultures and Cyclops, and it was just it took them so long to kill anything. And I feel like V could run into that problem if Mystery Meat adopts a very similar build.
Well, let's see. There's a little bit of pressure coming up here with those Hierophants. Remember, they are pretty fast. You mentioned the Hierophant Ecclesiast. Not exactly the best particular choice here, but that Mason is now under attack, and Oh, Mystery Meat's response seems a little bit beleaguered. He must have gone AFK for a moment or something. He had 0 APM for a second there.
He only had the 1 vulture, so there's not that many mines here.
Right.
Hit him up would usually add in a couple of extra mines, so sometimes this expansion would get denied or heckled a little bit, but usually he had a fairly safe fallback. But right here, he's not quite in a position to maximize that 1 lobster. He's going to get a little bit of damage in here. Veek does have a couple of Drakkenins, so if he takes those out early on, it takes a lot of teeth out of it, but...
Yep.
Eventually, just the saturated damage claims the rest of him, and he does manage to push him off. Mystery Meat sitting on quite a healthy sum of resources now. At this stage, not only does he want the expansion up, yep, as you can see, he wants to start adding in production because it's going to spike a lot, and you're not going to spend a lot of money. But Veek doesn't want to give him that chance. He wants to make sure that he can keep up this momentum here, but he's throttled in that ramp. He's taking so much damage from it. You can see Meat is getting into his face, so he can't fan out to avoid the splash.
Yeah.
A little bit of nuance in the control there, and he's got some vultures out to help clean that up.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, now you can start covering the approach of any reinforcements with mines. There were a couple more Drakkenins on the way, but, you know, they don't move as fast as Hierophants. They don't make it across. They do have a little bit more punch to them, but that's about it. And as the mines get laid to protect from any run-ins, and that kind of does allow those Cyclops to move around a little bit better, the Vultures are now just going to be dispatched on a little bit of a scouting mission. Maybe they'll pick this wounded Drakkenin. We'll see how on the ball Mystery Meat is, but it looks like the answer is not very, as he just lets them sail on past.
I think he's a little more interested to check the timing on this expansion and make sure there's no tech going on, because there has been the occasional, like, fast Decantor that comes out.
Yes.
And early defenses are generally not something you're going to build with this as the Terran. You don't really want to have to spend money on anchors inside your base. So a good Decantor shot can kill a lot, and if it comes out of nowhere, then it's just not good. But he will at least spot the expansion, doesn't get any kills out of it. So his army is a little small right now compared to Protoss. And the other thing I noticed about Hit 'em Up that it seems like Mystery Meat is not going to do is that the units are very wounded, because Hit 'em Up never builds any sustain at all. He might get some end seals, but he'll never get clerics, never get shamans, anything like that, likely because they're just too slow to keep up with the army. So a lot of units can be running around wounded. Mystery Meat has deviated from that path. He's going for the shaman. He's going for a more traditional build here, but it's going to take a little while for it to get up, and that will delay him a little bit because they are kind of expensive. But at the moment, he is quite keen to sit here. You see a little pile of mines. It looks like he's preparing to take that third.
Yeah, seems likely, and he's also fanning out with the Vultures to get pretty consistent scouting. That one Drakkenin poking forward doesn't catch any mines or anything. Would have been an offer up there if it had, but no such luck. I think they might be being rallied over to the ironically, each other have the same rally point.
Issue there. I thought he might have just been checking to see what was there, but the remainder of the units unfortunately gives Meat a few kills that he didn't really need to have. And
no, that being said, I mean,
off to the top right, perhaps, or he's gonna build something for that vulture.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah, he's got the vulture off to the side. I wonder if maybe it's going to be for that watchdog scout that we see. We have a bunch of witnesses coming for the embassy back at home for Veek, who has decided to erect that up. We have even worker queues for the time being. 2 quarries of ministry for Mystery Meat. And Veek has his 2 nexuses and, of course, the embassy. So I'm expecting, that's a watchdog scout coming, I am expecting that Veek will be able to catch back up in workers here. He does have a soft contain going because the armor and the army in general that Mystery Meat has, it can't really step to this force. Although I say that, I mean, the Zealots got very close to being sacrificed. If you don't have a strong front line for this, you can't really buy enough time to whittle down the Cyclops count, right? And if there's more than one Shaman, which currently there isn't, it's turning into clerics, that's one of those things that can help you out as the turn player because, you know, if the damage is spread or if you're able to just hold off enough, that's actually one of the reasons why Ant Seals are so popular. And that was an unfortunate loss of the first witness there as well, walking right into the detection field of the Shaman. But yeah, if you can see here that at this point the army size was seen, and Veek decides to retreat because he doesn't really have a very powerful front line.
Yeah, probably more critically is that we're seeing a pretty major deviation is the added Goliaths and the going pretty quickly for the phalanxes here. Not really going to rely on that mass Cyclops that we do see sometimes, or the super mass amount of vultures, which can be very nice to pick off slower moving stuff like Cantors or Architects or whatever, but he doesn't really have too much of a front line here, and he has to protect it because he really needs it to surround. But when the Terran is kind of in a single file like this, they can kind of afford to lose the front as long as the other half of the army and the tanks doesn't take a lot of damage. And then the Protoss has to make the decision of trying to keep up the aggression and going through all the Cyclops explosions, or trying to fan out and surround them, which does take a fair bit of control. And I've seen that kind of dance a little bit, and Protoss usually does not. Nablime will go for the surround. I've seen him do it a few times. But the other Protoss usually will opt to try to disengage that. So you see Vik has kind of like separated his forces out here just to be aware of the Terran trying to rush into here so he can get that surround a little bit more easily. But Meat doesn't have to push this. He can kind of like sit here for the moment.
Oh, he ends up sniping yet another witness too, though. He has a good eye for seeing that shadow. Remember, it's only a little bit of a film effect almost, like a very small little shimmer. And he found it on the ice tile set. That's not easy to do. We do have a bunch of architects coming out here for the double Ardent as Vik attempts to take a third. He is a little bit behind in that. Remember, Ministry at the third already up and running for Mystery Meat. And that worker count has not closed its distance just yet. No second embassy for Vik.
Yeah, the architects will definitely do very, very well. They don't hit air anymore, but Meat has no intentions of going air. He's sticking to that tier 1 Fulcrum. And they has some sustain, but the architects will just annihilate these Cyclops. Once Vik gets like 4 of them, you basically need to start switching out to something that moves a little bit faster while also dealing a lot of more upfront damage. So it's probably going to be like Vultures. I've seen Mass Matador, a lot of Matadors, in fact. And Goliaths can kind of do it if he gets a lot of them, but then it starts getting really expensive and your unit count goes down. And Vik could, in such a case, build Hierophants again. And he has a couple of them here. Not really a lot of them, but a stockade has flown out of Vik's face.
Yes, it was scouting. It's a more expensive scout than the Watchdog, but a hell of a lot tankier.
I think Vik notices that he needs that front line, so he's got 3 potato peelers on the way.
Well, the front line is going to be a little bit late as the Zealots charge forward here, trying to soak up what they can. The Ecclesia's keeping them alive for a little bit longer than you might expect, but still they end up falling quite inevitably. Phalanx count is starting to surge, but again, that Cyclops has been, it's been probably reduced by a third, maybe a little bit more, closer to half, but honestly, that Stockade absorbed 1,000 damage, so I think Mystery Meat's happy about that.
Just to absorb shots from that one side. That definitely helped a lot, but now these architects are going to prevent Meat from getting closer without taking some losses here. You can see their spread shot immediately kills him. Cleric.
Yep. Well, the Phalanxes are still pretty good. Oh, look at the splash damage. Vik not splitting his Dracodons quite enough. A lot of them end up getting splattered. And, you know, the Brood War rule of when you're fighting tanks as Protoss, you need to fall back with your Dragoons as your Zealots die. That's kind of true here as well. If you're going up against Phalanxes, you better, spare those Dracodons a little bit.
Yeah, he's getting some Amaranths that'll help a little bit, but he's lost all the Ecclesiasts now, so there's not as much sustain for them as they could be. But if he's able to amass an amount of these heavier units, he can definitely force his way in. That said, the Atlas is finished for Meat, and he's got himself a healthy dose of money.
Yeah,
absolutely filthy rich.
Well, here comes another re-engage, a couple Amaranths, and of course the Zealots as well. The Cyclops count is still pretty damn high. It's grown back up to 22 in the meanwhile, but the Phalanxes are starting to get focused down. As the number of mech units decreases, the focus fire needs to start switching over to some of those healers. Both of the Shamans still alive, and the focus fire from the Architects could have helped that.
Vik is in an alright spot as long as he prevents the tank line from getting too large and advancing too far forward.
Yes.
But he has to be able to do something at some point, put an advantage somewhere else, because, well, this is kind of a similar situation that Arb has often found himself against with Hinup, as he just wasn't able to start actually putting pressure on the Terran, because the Terran would just park himself or constantly be attacking. And meanwhile, he's expanding the whole time. So now the worker count is 120 to 81. That's 4 bases mining, and meanwhile, there is a Vulture in the bottom left, just making sure that nothing's going towards those neutral bases either.
Yeah, this is working out very nicely for Mystery Meat. The other thing
here.
Yeah, I mean, the Shamans stuck around because they're still deployed, but everybody else has already fallen back. And
now he remembered, wait a second.
Yeah. Why do I see stuff down there? That's weird. And, you know, the Vik didn't...
There's Madcaps coming.
Yeah, you know what? There's also a Stargate about to warp in. I wonder what that's for.
I'm assuming it's going to be Exemplar, because I've seen the Blind do that. And
usually with more than one Stargate,
answer to this is that if they go Mass Cyclops, go Exemplar, or he's going to go Lanifex, I guess. Okay. That also, I've seen the Blind work wonders with those.
Yeah, the disruption field could definitely work. But
the thing about Cyclops is when you have so many of them, they're just going to be hard to actually shut all of them down. But if he can at least shut down the tank line, then that's good. But he's going to need a lot of them. And I always seen a blind plop down like 2-3 Stargates to do this because it's going to take a while to actually arrange this. Meanwhile, the Terran is already advancing on that third that is so precious.
Yeah. If he ends up losing this, I think we can call the game because he's already down by almost twice as many workers in favor of the Terran. Obviously down 2 bases now as the 5th gets starts to get set up. The tempo definitely favoring our Terran player. Scrambling the response team here is Veek7. Wants to see if he can drive him back. He's got a nice set of architects, and here comes the first disruption field. Trying to swim on over as a small flanking force from the left also helps to disrupt this position. Mystery Meat flubbing the controls a little bit. Didn't snipe that land effect quite fast enough, so extra rotations ended up coming in there. Some architects even flying in from the left-hand side, but as of right now, it does look like Veek7's forces have started to falter. We got another land effect. Desperate measures here, but hey, it seems to be working out okay.
He kind of peeled them off of the architects, but so many of them have taken damage from the tanks that he can't really approach this line anymore, and he has to wait for his reinforcements.
Now around a servitors.
To finish these off. It's going to be costly, though. There's still some madcaps getting killed there, tanking for a precious few seconds, allowing the tanks to get some extra shots off, which kills another Herald. And the Shamans very, very hastily speed away.
And some good targeting from
Mystery
Mystery
Meat, that, but it was costly.
Even at the last second there, he almost brought down another architect with his last shot, narrowly avoiding death. Another stockade in the middle of the map.
Another stockade. Where do they keep coming from? How are they multiplying? What is this?
The rotations are coming in here as far as the macro rounds are concerned. The macro cycle is definitely paying off here for Mystery Meat as he's got yet another pretty strong force. And keeping those Shamans alive is a pretty big deal because, look, he's got throughput with 4 captaincies and 6 fulcrums, but he only has the 1 stockade. So losing all of those Shamans at once puts him behind for like 2 minutes, as opposed to losing, all of the Cyclops or something, which he can produce. I mean, I guess that's about the same amount of time to get back to the same number, but still a pretty significant difference there. Now, the one Zealot's going to come in here and start heckling this Sentinel before it's built, so that's good. Except, he's deciding to ignore the builder. That's a little bit of a...
Meat could go for tier 3 here. He's got the money.
Oh, yeah, that's true. He's almost at that breakpoint for Vespene.
He's definitely slipping a little bit on the money here. He can definitely get that tier 3 up, add in some more production or tech switch or do something else. He absolutely has the freedom at the moment. Whereas Veek is starting to really scrape here as he tries to get that 4th saturated. His army is very, very, very heavily outgunned. I'm not sure what Meat's doing. He's not really dumping out that money yet. He's
transferring, and he's trying to establish things at the 4th base. That unfortunately, that Sentinel is not actually repaired enough. So there's the Daedalus, though.
There's a tier 3. Yep. This is, well, I got the money. I may as well spend it. Most of his army is pretty cheap anyway. So if he really has to, he can make just vultures at this moment.
The Sentinel did burn down.
He's actually making some Heracles there to get his own front line.
Yeah, we like that. The Herald and the Heracles both start with HERA. Yep. And that's pretty cool because that means that Veek7 and Mystery Meat, they are both trying to make those HERA units work. And I appreciate that, dude. Oh, double synthetic Cyanide. Of course, Nebline will be like, Veek, why did you put this at your 3rd instead of somewhere more secure? But you know what? If he can bring in some Demiurges, or maybe he wants to go Clarion Empress, something like that. You kind of have to pick at this level of eco. You can't really do both because of the gas cost of all of those units combined. And he actually has not capped. Has he capped anything? It doesn't look like it. So no gas caps for Veek here. So he's going to be a little bit behind on the Vespene. Meanwhile, Mystery Meat's actually doing the opposite there, capping natural 4th base. 3rd still not, but that's all right. Slow going as he has a lodestone.
Mystery Meat has, you do want the caps, especially as you got the Daedalus coming up.
Yep.
He's in complete control at the moment. There is a tank that is just flipping its shit.
The other thing that's really interesting here is that I just saw Mystery Meat self-destruct a quarry to build a lodestone. My man. Lodestone representation right there. It's just a free policeman of any witnesses, which actually have fallen out of favor here. Veek has not been using them. He uses a random scribe to do Minesweeper. That's, I guess, a little bit useful.
Yeah, it's kind of like a battle worker.
Yeah, it's a scouting worker, but, not the normal amount. It is going to be Demiurges out of these Synods.
Yep.
I
don't think you can make Empresses work against so many Cyclops and Madcaps to get in a range of them. It's going to be horrible. It would be nice if you had the money because you can use them to attack the other expansions, especially if you have some other air units with them. But on their own, they're definitely too fragile. The Demiurges, though, while they have great range, a lot of the Terran's units are still beefy enough that they're not going to go down very easily. but they're frail enough that focusing the damage onto them is really not that amazing either. It's really great against mass Cyclops because they don't really do a lot of damage, but against the Madcaps, if they get close, they will go through them.
Well, the Lanifex almost got out of there unscathed, but then 3 out of 4 of them died. They were just doing a bit of a scouting mission. The single Gladius on the top right has started to do silly things, and a stockade flew over the 4th. So this is just a couple of very silly engagements here, but you know what? Veek is going to charge on forward. A lot of his front lines.
Cantavis is there. That could really help a lot here.
Oh, but they're getting body blocked by the rest of the army. Not a great initial spacing, and the front line's starting to fall. We do have another macro cycle of frontline units spilling out, though, and occupying a lot. There's a nice storm. That's going to really slow things down. That's the perfect tool to use against Madcaps and Phalanxes because they get more power by standing still. And if you counter that with area denial, look at the damage. Just so many dead Madcaps and Cyclops.
Yeah, as they're running back, it reduces the number of targets that can be attacked, so the few shots from the Architects is going to do huge damage. And it did kill Shaman, although he's godlike 8 of them there still. Kind of stops him at this moment. He might be thinking of how to actuate this tier 3. Yep. It looks like it's going to be Apothecary, so I'm expecting to see some Silver Tongues out of that. Yeah, a little bit more range, a little bit more mobile than the Phalanxes, obviously. And, it's sort of like a souped-up variant of what happens when Terran gets to Tier 2 and they transition into Cataphracts, as opposed to just relying entirely on Phalanxes. They don't do the same role exactly, but Cataphracts are obviously a bit more mobile on account of being able to actually move freely in between attacks, whereas the Phalanx, in order to really get that effective range, needs to deploy and ground itself, and also lose all of its armor. So there's some details about the Cataphract that end up working out. Now, down here, Veek 7 making use of the Crucible to warp in some structures immediately. A single Madcap's going to dissuade any expansion in the sort of upper 3 o'clock position there. One Shaman is going to go down in the middle, but here come the Disruption Fields a little bit too late for my liking, and I think Mystery Meat is going to be happy about picking those before the rest of the engagement comes in. Where are the Cantavises? One of them so far behind. We need that Storm. It was so impactful last time, but I don't think he's going to get there in time. Yeah, just a little bit of a zoning.
Yes.
And that was kind of like, I think it was like Veek's last chance to make something happen here because this diadem is just about to finish.
Yes,
and
yeah.
There are Silver Tongues coming, and I think as soon as these hit, Veek's soul is going to be burning.
I think so too, yeah. I mean, it's nice to see a nice macro game out of these two, but it does feel like Mystery Meat has been in the lead for a good amount of time, and Veek 7's opportunity to respond to what Mystery Meat was doing.
I'm not sure Mystery Meat's aware of this secret base that's just below his on the west side of the map.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's only now being established. I mean, if he puts one diadem over here, it's definitely going to hurt. Yep. First shot is already cracked off in the middle of the map. We have a bit of a run by here with a small group of forces, mostly melee, trying to see if they can deal with the Sentinels. But there's a nice shot onto one of those Demiurges, reducing its HP to almost half. And I think Mystery Meat is just going to shut the door on this. We've got another push attempted to come through. Lobotomy mines and diadems together. I never thought I'd see the day, Mesk, but indeed, that just happened. A little bit of counter-harassment with the Gladiuses. That's going to take a little bit for Mystery Meat to respond to, but honestly, the diadems are giving him so much power and pressure right now.
Yeah, even if Veek ends up destroying this army, which he's really not likely to at the current rate, there's still so much random stuff luring around, and then when you look further inside Mystery Meat's base, you can see he's got some Silver Tongues that are not being used yet. Meanwhile, the Architects are just getting annihilated by the diadems. Yeah,
he just lost so much. I mean, he's got a nice storm there for sure, but he lost a lot, and now the Silver Tongues are out. They're going to start sniping down the Architects. Oh, man, his friendly fire isn't.
Madcaps.
Meanwhile, more shots just running amok in the middle of the map. It's trench warfare all over again, blind fire artillery.
Yep, now the Silver Tongues are out, so any range advantage that Veek was really hoping to get out of this is pretty much being nullified at the moment.
A couple of Heracles flying around here just trying to slow the egress of these workers. Heckling the worker migration,
and suddenly Meat realizes, wait a second, there's something over here.
The money is absurd in terms of minerals, but the gas count not so much for both of these players. And I don't think Veek still has not capped his gas despite having so many minerals, right? Just to kind of underscore one of the points. Now, obviously, Mystery Meat was ahead for a number of other reasons, but I think that would have been... There was an opportunity to maybe see if you could. And I understand it does lock your ability to harvest Vespene during that time. So it does feel bad to cap the gas in some ways unless you feel... Like, you can get into a situation where... you feel so far behind, you don't feel like you can afford to drop that gas harvesting for a period of time. But I think he had the time there and just didn't recognize it in the moment.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a lull. Just think, he might have been able to get some heavy air into here. Imagine if he had some rebellions or something to be able to.
Yeah, he's got 2 Argosies coming. So, but that's despite not having that much.
Now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Meat has more than enough money to add an entire new round of production buildings onto what he's got.
Yeah, that's right. He's starting to go for the dilettantes because his Vespene is too low to get anything else. And admittedly, he hasn't actually expanded past the initial 5 base set. So that might be an opportunity to think about for his own improvement. But indeed, Mystery Me will take the first game. And Veek7 has to do some thinking. We're going to go to Genesis Y for map 2. Did you kind of agree with the general sentiment that there was room for Veek7 to see if he could try to punish? I mean, when you open up Corey first into somebody who's going, 2-3 gate, I mean, obviously the expansion was a little bit delayed there for Veek, but he did punish a little bit. I think maybe his attack up the ramp is what was ill-advised. He either needed to hit earlier.
Too greedy about that, yeah. I think it might have been better to try to contain. And then maybe you can't hold the contain forever, but at the very least, you can, trade. And, not lose everything, but just when he tries to move out, you force him to fight with what few units he has. You keep his unit count as low as you can without committing too much to it. And then, yeah, you can get a little bit of momentum off of that, because then you aren't facing, so many more Cyclops after that point, after his eco starts to actually really accelerate ahead from that. So, but definitely, forcing up the ramp was kind of hard, because he all went in, a little single file. And then Meat started trying to body block him, and then he kind of gave up and sort of committed to it. But at that point, it was already kind of a mess because of all the damage he took on the ramp.
Well, let's see what happens on Genesis Y, a 2-spawn map by Biddy B. We went from Veek territory to Biddy B territory. And you know what? I'm actually going to be moving soon, so I might need to hit Biddy B up for some moving tips and tricks. We got Veek7 as Terran in the top right here. I'm going to guess this is straight old green. And then Mystery Meat down here. Oh, it's not quite periwinkle, is it? But is it... Oh, it's not silver either. It's a brighter color than that. Is it Maya Blue? Oh, it is periwinkle. Holy shit.
It's periwinkle.
I can't believe it. I had it right the first time, but I changed my answer. Nobody gets a free pass in the color guessing game. It's more important than even Acropolis itself. So
what I did definitely notice in that game is that Mystery Meat had a lot of difficulty both keeping his money down and keeping his macro cycles going.
Yep.
And there was definitely times where his APM went down to 40 something, and he had thousands of minerals and hundreds of gas, and nothing was happening. And especially watching Arbas and Hit 'em Up and Ramens, Nablime and so on, is that the main thing that really separates these players and parts where it can cause them issues with the games is if they don't keep their money down. So what I'm noticing is that they're very, very aggressively macro cycling constantly, even to the detriment of fighting. They will even lose fights to keep the macro cycles down. And one of the things that kind of is separating Nablime from a lot of these people at the moment is that he is able to micro parts of the fights, or most of the fights, while keeping the macro cycles going. So he keeps his money. It starts to get a little out of control once you start talking about 5-6 bases. And then there's a lot of you have to start microing the demiurges and storms or whatever. But he wasn't in a super high pressure situation like that. So I don't know, that's probably just a little bit of rust showing up that he's gonna practice himself out of. But that's an opportunity for Veek to take the advantage, I feel because later on in the game he should be able to macro a little bit better than that. And capping gas is something I notice most Protoss don't seem to do, and a lot of them end up in this situation where it's 20 minutes into the game, they start making vagrants because they need to dump minerals instead of capping their gas and getting more gas and building units that can actually fight, tier 2 Terran, tier 3 Protoss or whatever. So there's definitely a few things I'm noticing that it can be an issue here. But I mean, when we look at this game, we're just calling back to the beginning of the year. This is Mystery Meat doing his thing. And yeah.
Listen, there's a silly thing and there's an important thing, Mesk. The silly thing is, if you click on one of the Vespene miners in Veek space, you'll see that it was attacked ruthlessly and destructively by his own vulture because he misclicked. And then the important thing is that there is a Mason Corpse by those star pads. And that's because the first star pad was scouted by Mystery Meat, despite the stim pack attempt there by the Mavericks. And now Vik is trying to do a little bit of damage, but he's not focus firing, and he flubs one of the patrol commands there, or attack commands. 1 HP left on that Vulture. He's not going to be able to break up the ramp. And it is going to be Wraiths out of Mystery Meat. This is a TVT classic that he likes to do. He does enjoy his Wraith play. And it's interesting that he went for Stockade, right? He actually has a slower quarry than his opponent. He actually no quarry right now. So this gambit has to pay off, or Vik 7 will have the macro advantage.
Well, it could have been, since Vik is random, you literally have to expect a possible 6 pool. So, I don't think Vik normally does that, but it's definitely something I would be thinking about in a match like this, especially after we just did a very long match as our opener.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Is he might try to cheese me in round 2. That's the first thing I would think. Because I think that's, if you're going to run into a cheese, it's going to be in the second round of a best of 5. So, definitely going for a Stockade first is definitely making sure that any early aggro, whatever it could be, he has some kind of answer for it. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Very, very safe.
He didn't actually have the fastest Stockade possible. He was harvesting Vespene during it, and I thought it was because he was going to go Stockade into Quarry, because as soon as I saw the Stockade, I was like, well, he's not saving that gas for a Fulcrum. And then now I was like, oh, wait, he's going to go Starpad, I guess. And then, of course, not being able to deny the Scout means that now Vik just builds 2 Cyclops, 2 Goliaths, and expands behind it. So that's going to be his play towards it. Mystery Meat is going to have a hard time being able to do much of anything. He will pick the Mason. Good timing on that for him, but he even loses a Wraith for it. Just the advantage of the Goliath versus that particular unit.
Yeah, Vik switching immediate to the Goliath is precisely what he wanted to do. Doesn't have to over-panic at the moment. If the match goes on a long time, and you think your opponent is building nothing but Wraiths, that's when you want to start thinking about, okay, maybe I should build some Watchdogs. But definitely at that point, just getting the early Goliath, paying that very hefty upfront fee, only a handful of Wraiths is not going to be able to kill the Goliath because you can just repair it. So you might lose a worker or two, but as long as you keep your defenses fairly split up, now he's adding a Watchdog because now he's got an expansion protect.
Yep.
But now it's kind of like Meat's to the point where, like, do I want to continue to mass Wraiths? Well, he's invested 2 star pads into this. He needs to hold up his map control, but how much damage can he get off of it? It's really going to come down to unit control now. He really can't afford to lose any Wraiths, and he has to stop Vik from getting an impenetrable army.
Oh my God.
Is going to run over anything he tries to add onto it. And
so I was just going to comment as well that look at the fact that the mines never got swept and that Vulture was still alive. That's a missed opportunity for Mystery Meat to add some uncertainty into the mix. Am I moving out with a ground army of pure infantry to do a timing attack with my Wraiths at the same time? The Wraiths are going to come in here and pick a single Cyclops, but even still, losing one Wraith and a lot of damage on a bunch of others, not exactly, I mean, that's a bare even trade for the units lost, but in terms of damage dealt, not exactly good for our Wraith player. And at the same time, that one mine's still there. Mystery Meat is not actually telegraphing his, like, he's not leaving it open to interpretation as to what he might be doing. No uncertainty left there for Vik. And Vik's Vulture picks the Mason that was set out here to build something on site. Now Mystery Meat will do it again, it looks like, but he doesn't actually have the resources for a treasure. He's almost got one finished anyway. He's built it back in the main, so it's going to float over. Instead, he's going to make another anchor. But, you know, that's just one little subtle thing that, like, actually Vik had a really good idea to not just scout with that Vulture and then eventually take the opportunity to get a pick, but also just the fact that he left the mines there. He knew he could do all of those moves you were talking about with the delayed Watchdog and the unit movements to be exactly in defense for an air push. And, you know, Goliaths are actually weak to Mavericks. People don't necessarily know that. But
yeah, their anti-ground damage is not actually really that good.
Yeah, they do get overwhelmed. So that's one of those things that where if you look at that and you think to yourself, I'm going to go Goliath, you are leaving yourself vulnerable to a bio push. And the fact that he didn't even have to worry about that because the mine coverage is just really good. The Vulture pick as well, very high level stuff there. So Vik's back in action, and he's going for his own star pad, probably for an Anseal just to help detect and stuff. And, you know, he has the worker advantage as well.
Is working himself into a hole because he went to get the Shaman so he could repair his Wraiths.
Yes.
Now he's invested a very substantial amount of money into this, and it has done minimal damage. He has to make this do damage at this point. Otherwise, he's going to get overwhelmed by Vik's army, because Vik's eco is also better than his at the moment. I feel like what might have been better is actually using those to build Trojans, doubling down into bio, and like having like an Ahmed burst. Because most of Vik's units are going to be sitting in the Nat as he builds turrets in his main. If there was suddenly some drop harass on top of that, that's going to add an extra layer of uncertainty to Vik, and that can help keep him in his base. Now it's going to be a little hard. He has to rely on these anchors to try to defend this. He does have a Phalanx now, but Vik has like total map control outside of this. He can't really commit the Wraiths to fighting this.
Well, he's getting some good damage with that Phalanx. It does technically have cliff advantage parked at the top of the ramp. something worth pointing out here. And look at that, even hunting down that one extra Cyclops. Unfortunately, it does cost him a Wraith. That Goliath range really working out for him.
Trading a lot every time this happens. That said, these units getting split up here, if he was up here, he could definitely start picking off. He could definitely go for that Goliath in particular and try to trade some money. But his investment in this is super, super high.
Yeah.
And he's still making Wraiths. So he's managed to hold that off. Rushing straight to the Phalanx is basically the other option he can do rather than trying to keep committing to the heavy aggro. But he's definitely in a spot where when we look at the workers at 64 to 48, he's definitely got a little bit of catching up to do. He hasn't fallen further behind percentage-wise, so that's good, but definitely want to like try to pick these off before Vik is able to sustain them, but you definitely don't want to be trading. So he's
look at that!
Oh,
he
got
the
ant
seal.
seal. That's good.
That's definitely good. And he'll even
grabbing
pick a couple
some of these
cycles.
stragglers here. Yeah. That's precisely what he needs.
And the Wraith count is still growing. It's only the 2-star pad, something I know Nebline was a fan of way back in the Ascension 7 days, was the whole, triple star pad. You really commit to it. He even mentioned it in Acropolis #1, something that Newt was really good at. Shout out Newt. He managed to definitely make a name for himself with all those Wraiths. And that's one of those things that I think we haven't really seen anybody do since Mystery Meat came back. Now, Mystery Meat played TVT against Shopkeeper Dog. It was on Rageslave, so a different map, but he really controlled the matchup with the Wraiths. He had total map control. He had Shopkeeper Dog in his own base. The Goliath pull did not come fast enough for the Dog, and as a result, Mystery Meat was able to win that particular match, but that looks so different than this. Mystery Meat had the worker advantage, not his opponent, and now Vik is still up by 23 workers.
Yeah, so he's getting some good damage in on here, but so long, like, Vik is in a stage where, like, if his opponent just keeps making Wraiths over and over and over like this, then it'll reach a point where the Goliaths aren't really that good anymore. So you kind of, like, you're sort of, like, forced into building a lot of Watchdogs and Cyclops and hunkering down, but when you have the worker advantage like that, you can afford to kind of do that, so long as you don't let him get too many picks and kills on it. Mina's working uphill, but he's definitely getting some mileage out of this.
Yeah, he's also adding double Palladium
while being forced to build defenses.
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing that's worth pointing out here is with the extra Palladiums coming online, okay, sure, you're down to 12 Wraiths again. They probably need to be healed. You are making more of them. Queued up, actually, 2 in each coffer there in the queue. But think about it, right? Like, if he goes a lot of Phalanxes here, which it looks like he's going to do, I mean, I'm just looking at this terrain here, right? Like, so abusable from this position if he wants to try to siege this third. And Vik needs to kind of recognize that and almost be a little bit proactive. The mines from the Vultures can be placed elsewhere on the map for good map control and vision. We'll see if he wants to do that towards the bottom left. He is expanding towards the top left and transferring a big amount of workers.
Could possibly do some damage. If Vik comes in here at a really specific time, and he, like right now, for example, when, like, there's not really a wall here. There's some Phalanxes. He can actually kill a couple of these Phalanxes, trade the Vultures for Phalanxes, and that would definitely set Meat back. I mean, he's got 3 Fulcrums making Phalanxes, but if he starts losing a bunch of early ones, it's going to prevent him from really doing too much more than the Wraith Harass for a while. It kind of looks like what Meat wants to do is just lock Vik down and then eventually go for a tank contain. That's only going to work if he has a lot of Phalanxes, because Vik, again, is still over 20 workers ahead, and he's actually just straight up just killing these defenses to try to thin down that worker number. He only manages to get 1, though.
Yeah, he's also going to see yet another base here. This is looking bad for Mist at this point, right? Like, Vik has a 4th base, pretty well saturated at this point, still up 20 workers.
He could catch these Vultures, though.
He might be able to see them. I mean, the one anchor out forward it's not exactly a wall, but it is going to, stop them from being able to really do too much in this position. They're going to charge forward with some mines. I don't know if that's the right move.
Their damage got split up. They got separated, and now they're not focused firing, and they unfortunately do not do that much damage. That was very, very unfortunate for Vik.
That was 15 Vultures. That was a pretty penny.
At least wanted to kill a couple Phalanxes, but their damage kind of went everywhere.
Yeah, and also when they're in the tank mode, they do have that extra armor, right? So
that's why you really need to, like, focus fire them as much as you could.
Yep.
Surround them so they can't run away, and then just focus fire them down one at a time. At least get like 2 or 3 of them would have helped a lot, but unfortunately, a lot of them got stuck above and weren't attacking anything for a while. Some were attacking Mavericks, some were attacking tanks, and then the Shaman was there sustaining.
Oh no, that's
Wraiths have walked into an ant seal.
Yeah, 4 of them down, almost a 5th. But the tank count is pretty good. You know, he's at 12 Phalanxes right now, and he's just coming up with the Shamans, 5 of them. 6 back at home for healing those 3 trusty guard dog Mavericks.
That's a lot of Phalanxes.
Dude, there's 7 mantles being made all at once here for Veek. Tier 2 is in the cards for him.
If those come off and start making like cat facts, it's gonna be a little tough to make it work for Meat, but I think the tanks should be able to do pretty well against those.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if he has to keep thinning out this army, and I mean his numbers are higher right now, but Veek is definitely in a stronger position overall. But I mean, with the random worker kills and stuff like that, he is slowly squeezing that gap. It feels like Veek's advantage is slipping away.
4th base and 5th base coming on at the same time. There's a 1 Goliath moving to the bottom left for Veek. That is going to deny the Ministry going down there. Corey will finally fall, and that's going to open up more phalanxes. Look at this. He's actually pressuring the Watchdogs. They're going to have to be forced to lift off, play hopscotch. That's going to allow the Wraiths back in. 15 of them over here. And with those phalanx damage as well, I mean, he's pushed them back in his own base. This is looking very dangerous here for Veek all of a sudden.
I think
he's actually down 10 workers.
Struggles with like multiple fronts and having to deal with a bunch of like stuff going on at once. And Meat is able to kind of like just orchestrate poking in several spots. And it's like starting to tie up Veek's attention. And he's starting to get his money down finally. But he's definitely starting to reach a difficult situation where he needs to make an executive action to take control of this ledge and stop the Wraiths from coming up here, and then stop these tanks from killing his workers on top of it. So he needs to like park the cat facts on top of that ledge with some anseals and say, okay, if you want this ledge, if you want to tank this, you have to trade.
Well, you know, here's another.
Cat facts are going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate here for Veek because his Goliath parked in the middle of the path and did not cancel the Ministry being made in the bottom left. So that actually affords Mystery Meat a pretty healthy amount of economic tempo, especially since his other base north of his main was built. So, like, the expansions are looking pretty good here for Mystery Meat all of a sudden. Up by 15 workers, which is something that you can close as far as a gap is concerned. And look at this. We've got 5 Palladiums all of a sudden. After investing so much into the mantles, Mystery Meat realizes, or Veek realizes rather, he cannot contend with this phalanx position without leveraging that cliff for his own artillery. And the Cataphracts, maybe he was feeling like, in tank mode,
the starports would have been a good call here, rather than trying to go for mantles at this point when he's already got the tanks coming. If he went like Wyvern, Valkyrie, suddenly Meat has to go back to building something else. He has to go to tier 2, or he has to start building his own Goliath. And meanwhile, trying to fight all these tanks up front is just resulting in a complete train wreck.
Yeah, they are coming in. The ground army is going to have to swing on down to that little upper 9 o'clock position. Ramses are pretty good versus phalanxes when they are deployed. Not so good when they are not, because that's when the armor blocks them.
But they're not really more durable than the Cyclops, so you got to get kind of close. But there's so many tanks. They do so much damage. Meanwhile, Veek is just hamstrung by this ground-only army sitting here, and he's trying to fight it with vultures instead of going for air. I don't know why he doesn't build the starports. Some Seraphs would have been really godly here. Just
definitely could have been an option. Oh, yeah, the army that was stuck inside his main is such a slow-moving one as well. It's going to start rotating over, but there's a vulture flood. There's more phalanxes coming. You know, Mystery Meat, I don't think he has an Atlas, but he's not using it yet. He's just like, yeah, let's vibe out with the Fulcrums, man.
This Anseal is being tickled.
It is.
It's
Vulture's
being
dancing
tickled.
for it. Oh, there you go.
Off it goes.
It only flees when it loses its energy, so.
It's going to take him so long to kill it. Yeah.
It escapes. It doesn't escape.
Well, at least he'll kill all the Wraiths. They just flew into the Ramses. So I don't think Veek wants to push this ledge. It's
his rally point does.
Cause. This battle worker wants to.
Here we go. Hey, Minesweeper.
Yeah.
Oh, look, he got a vulture out of it.
Vulture.
Battle workers.
Battle workers. Veek's got his own stockade. Or no, that's
a Mystery Meat stockade.
That's another mystery stockade.
Yeah, providing
just
vision.
Come out of nowhere. What the fuck?
Overwatch for the phalanxes.
They're always just in the weirdest of positions.
Well, it's stopping any gas mining here, as you can see.
Yep.
Yeah,
he's gonna get a couple more kills in.
Oh no. Yeah, look at how the worker count has changed, man. Veek brought down below triple digits.
Got paralyzed by this.
Yeah.
This tank thing on the right here.
Yeah.
It should have been swept up a long time ago. I definitely feel like Veek should have just switched straight into starports.
He had the tier 2 timing for sure. Yeah.
Because he's got the tier 2. Seraphs would be great all around right now because of their armor shred, but the Irradiate would start forcing Meat to respond to him. Veek's in a position where he constantly has to be responding to Meat, and Meat's composition is as such that every time you try to respond to it, you get punished because it's all tanks.
That's right.
So you don't want to be in a situation where you have to be responding to it. You want him to have to respond to you, and that means opting out of having to push into the tank line. And eventually he does manage to clear out this expansion.
Yep.
But it took all of his cat packs and everything. And I mean, if Meat had a couple Trojans, he could just start shuttling tanks up onto this main. And if he starts sieging this whole area here, then Veek's got a real disaster in his hand, because now he has to pull all these slow-ass units across the map. Anything that gets built's going to get killed. He has to start fighting his own base. Like there is some really dirty shit that Meat can do right now, especially with his 6,200 minerals.
Well, he's going to go ahead, it looks like, and set something up in the upper right where all of his phalanxes are. There's a little bit of a counter push coming over here, but
another stockade.
No, that's a ministry coming in.
Oh,
you're talking about the one that's floating in the middle of there. Yeah, he's actually going to expand into that spot that he's been terrorizing Veek from.
Yep. Yeah, as well. Veek wants to take this area here. Now, he does have a ledge, and he has some phalanx to his own, so he can definitely get some mileage out of this. This is where having some of those wraiths on hand could possibly be handy, because while the cat packs are occupied elsewhere, he can try to start picking off those tanks. But critically speaking, Meat has stopped building wraiths at this point.
Yeah.
He's got a couple sitting in his main, but he's not using them. And as a result, this ledge gives Veek absolute impunity. He is killing a ton of Meat's shit. And Meat is finding himself in a little bit of a sticky situation here.
Yeah, the phalanxes on the other side, they try to trade for each other, but look, Mystery Meat, 17 kill, 2.2k damage phalanx leading the charge underneath the slightly burning stockade. Just to put it into perspective, like half of those phalanxes have north of 1,000 damage, or sometimes more,
yeah,
right?
That's a lot of workers.
Yeah.
Now we have these two lines being drawn here, these two no man's lands for either player, and it's just definitely like a North Korea DMZ situation.
Yeah,
but
and one of the things.
At Meat's base,
well, the data
Meat's got an answer.
Ah, yes, diadems.
The double diadem. He's been all his money. He has been stockpiling and is still stockpiling to an insane amount.
People say TVT is the greatest matchup in Starcraft 1. Oh no!
Get him!
Oh,
Get
no.
him! Battle
no.
workers!
No, the
battle
phalanxes!
workers!
No, Mesk hold me!
Oh, no! Oh no! Oh my God!
They all died, but the wraiths are starting to heckle again.
Oh, the wraiths have arrived. The stockades are on fire. The vultures are dying.
Dude,
so
the phalanxes friendly fired the last cataphract. He can't finish sieging that base on the bottom left.
Oh my God.
So that's why you don't worker Paul versus Terran. Let it be known.
It would have been easier just to kill the cat packs with the workers.
Yeah.
This is a disaster. The more of them are dying terribly. Oh, something exploded. A tank exploded.
The stockade's about to burn down. Get as many kills as you can before it burns.
It's got 25 kills. And rising.
Yeah. You're talking about almost 3.5k damage. No damage. Oh, the diadem. It's hitting the bottom left. Oh, you just saw 3 more workers explode. Stockade finally went down.
Has 30 fucking kills. Holy shit. It's got 3692. That's 69. And yeah, Veek sees the diadems and is like, well.
All right, that's apparently too much. Dude, Mystery Meat on qualification point here. I was not expecting that. I thought for sure we were going to see a 1-2 punch there. We go to Rageslave with the tie series, but no.
He definitely got cracked under the pressure in that one, I feel like. He definitely had a pretty good opening. He definitely had the answer to the Wraiths, but he wasn't really quite sure how to follow up on that. Meanwhile, I feel like Meat could have closed that game like 10 minutes earlier by using some drops and abusing that main that was so open for so long.
Yeah.
Or exploiting the fact that Veek was just unable to dislodge these tanks that just set up permanent shop in this little corner that threatened both of his bases.
Yes.
And I feel like if you started shuttling more tanks onto that ledge or anything, just putting stuff up there, that suddenly Veek has to pull all this stuff across the map and it puts him in such a stupid position. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still had the one tank with 30 kills on it, which is just insane.
Yeah, I think the counter phalanxes came too late. Mantles, when he had been struggling with the wraiths, I guess that probably made sense. I guess, if we really think about it, that last game, it was kind of a failure to scout. Like, the Wraiths, as much as they weren't really affecting map control, Mystery Meat was still scouting his opponent's composition a lot with the Wraiths and seeing what he was at. I don't think he saw the Atlas at any point, but eventually he saw the Mantles with those Wraiths, right? And it's like, Mist, he had conditioned Veek to just expect Wraiths, I guess, the whole game, and that's where the Mantles came in as like a counter to the Wraiths. He's like thinking, okay, I'm going to get these penetration units like the Ramses, these tanky multi-target units like the Cataphract, and then, the frontliners can handle everything else. If I need Durandals or whatever, I can just use that. No, my friend. There's more than just the Wraiths coming. And the lack of scouting, I think, probably hit him. If you think about the way that Mystery Meat scouts with the Watchdogs and apparently the Stockades as well in that first game on Cold Sweat, he didn't do that this game because he had the Wraiths, but there was no counter scout there, right? And actually, we saw that in the first game as well. The Witnesses came out, they got sniped. That's it. He never made any more. So I think maybe for this particular game, Veek has to think about what his opponent is doing, and it should be a bit easier. We're going to Rageslave, a very compact map, especially if we get close positions, which is anything other than vertical. So if that right-hand spot is occupied, it'll be Mystery Meat in the right-hand side here in the 3 o'clock position, as I'm going to guess the Dark Olive. Hell yeah, I got that one right, Terran. And Veek is going to be Protoss once again. I'm going to guess he's teal. There it is. Yep. I thought for a second it was cyan, which is Necron's favorite color, so happy birthday, Necron. But it wasn't teal. It was teal and not cyan, so fuck you, Necron. Fucking idiot. No, I'm just kidding.
I definitely feel like Veek's, or rather, Mystery Meat, Veek had a little bit of money float too in that game, but I feel like Veek was like getting more overwhelmed than anything. But for Mystery Meat in particular, there's definitely a few things that he most certainly improve on to exploit certain points in the map that it definitely feels like he could make so much more out of. But also he has to go to tier 3 to end both of those games.
Yeah, and, that's a point, right? Like we saw tier 3 come out in 2 out of the 3 games. Maybe we'll see it again. I've never seen a tier 3 game on Rageslave. I haven't seen that many games on Rageslave, to be fair, but never seen a tier 3.
This is a pretty big map, and there is a lot of bases on it. But I feel like Mystery Meat's like maybe just playing it really safe. But also at the same time, when you have like 8,000 minerals and you're building tier 3, you can just like pump vultures or something. You can just like spam sentinels. Like you gotta do something with that money because, I think that's gonna hit him against an opponent like Nablime at this point. I think he's gonna actually really struggle with that because Nablime is definitely a lot better about spending his money. So that's definitely gonna make a gap that's gonna be hard for him to catch up on. But he definitely like the rotation into just all phalanx.
Yes,
was definitely really unexpected. He was also pretty expensive. He was pretty heavy committal. And I feel like if he had gone Starport, he would have been good. But
we once again have a Quarry first on our hands, followed by a Stockade, as opposed to the Fulcrum. So
unfortunately, Veek has scouted in the wrong direction. So there's no real way for him to punish it immediately. It is a Hierophant coming, but it's going to be a Cyprian in response to that. Curious opener. Potentially, actually, really disastrous for me if Veek goes really hard on the offensive right away.
If he just moves that Hierophant in, he might end the game.
He's gonna cause me a lot of headaches. In fact,
the Mason's gonna distract him, right? He sees the Hierophant, he's like, okay, I really need to not die to this. And so, the Cyprian's gonna get dragged away probably by that Scribe.
I feel like you just ignore this worker at this point. Like when your Scribe sees this one Cyprian, you just ignore that Mason and you just go in hard as fuck. Because even if you end up trading at this point, if you kill these Cyprians before they go on the anchor, that is such a horribly expensive loss at this point in the game. Yeah. He doesn't really want to do that, though. He's going to actually do a fairly fast expand here off of one gain. He's going for that Ecclesia, so the Ecclesia's Hierophant opening. And he's actually going to sit here and defend, but...
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, you see the Quarry already up and running. You must assume that with only the 2 Cyprians,
there's still a Scribe there. I mean, if he wanted to, he could
proxy gateway or something.
Build a little something back there, He could maybe like an engram or something. No, he's been discovered. Oh, it's Jover.
Veek improved the accuracy of shots like the Cyprian to be a lot more accurate to collision, so he just got slapped by his own creation in a way. That's disrespect.
Well, there's a second Stockade coming, so it's not going to be Wraiths or a Fulcrum Switch, at least not yet. But a second...
he's out.
Fuck off.
Saved. What? Veek didn't want to pursue that. He was worried that there could be a hidden Cyprian
He took a look at that bussy, and he didn't want anything to do with it. He was out of there. It was like the GIF where the car drives up to the Amogus, and it switches, and it's just like his ass and like two like titanic arms, just like muscles as large as the car. So the car just like backs up, and it's got like sappy classical music playing. That's what happened right there. That Hierophant walked up, took a look at those thick ass cheeks clapping down the street. He's like, nah, hell nah, I want no part of that. And homeward he went. So now the Mason's sitting there, surely awaiting the day of the call to Carlos, where he's going to build an anchor and something's going to pop into it and scribes are going to be destroyed.
I would hope so. Treasury instead coming right now for Mystery Meat. A subtle note, and something that I should fix. But I've been trying to keep in mind like how the worker pathing with resources is affecting in different matchups. And look at the thing for Mystery Meat. His workers actually have to move underneath the quarry a little bit sometimes when they're returning for that patch on the Type 1 patch that is fourth from the bottom. If you look at the fourth from the bottom one that's like closer to the map edge. That is inefficient mining. I've got to fix that.
I want you to go play your Zerg tutorial.
Yeah.
And I want you to watch the workers hop the 2 fucking bases that you start at. They will hop past the geyser all the way down to the other base.
So what happened is I tested that and it worked fine, and then Veek overhauled the Wandering code, and
I figured something got changed after that was made. That just because I didn't think you would leave it like that because it was
no. I didn't think it was changing the ranges, but now that I think about it, it did end up doing that. So that's just something I'll have to change up the layout or something at some point.
It destroyed me when I saw that.
Yeah,
especially since it's like a Reg geyser next to you. So, like, your minerals are getting randomly cuckoed by pathing, and then you've got, like, low gas on top of it.
Yeah. Classic.
So I was like, I died the first time because I built no defenses. And I was like, okay, I'll build circuits. And then everything was colon 3. But I still had to spend a good chunk of the match watching my workers go to fucking Brazil.
Yeah, you got to get that that macro hatch, you know?
We've got the Zopies Eidolons.
Yes. We love Eidolons here. Big Eidolon believers.
Witness coming out, though. Really, really strong because, well, 9 range is pretty nice. I mean, their attack speed's slow and they don't have any armor penetration. But, especially against Protoss, it's like, this Hierophant Ecclesias thing struggles against it because they have to get close to you. And depending on your army composition, and that fucking Ecclesias is doing a real jig. That's like that one cowboy gift that Lorerskin sent me. And, you just, if you want to get close to them, you have to trade for it, basically. And if there's a stack of them, even that doesn't work, because they can actually just start picking off everything like the Ecclesias. Oh, if Mystery Meat was paying attention, that Witness is uncloaking his units.
Yes. He's chasing it down.
He sees it.
He's chasing it down.
He's chasing it, but he doesn't have anything to see it. So
no, Witness moves
up
up
there. He's going to make a Shaman here, and
I'm just going to pop it.
I'll be able to catch it. Meanwhile...
Oh my god, dude, he's a Gigabrain man. Look at this. Just 5 health. 5 health. Good show, man. That was...
Close. You better repair that, though, because Beak is mad.
That's like when you use the Harakan to light your own unit on fire to reveal the burrowed unit before we enabled it to be detected by being stepped on. That's some really Gigabrain play. Oh, no! Eidolon just got bopped. Oh, well, don't worry. We traded. I got my revenge in the end.
Witness worked so hard to survive, and then at the end of the day, it just flew straight into the Shaman and died.
Yeah, he's like, Nan and a boo-boo.
The triple potato peeler once more makes its appearance.
Oh yeah, that's
quadruple potato peeler.
The Grand Libraries will be really useful here. I think the Heralds were kind of underrated in that opening match. They did allow the Amaranths and etc. to stay alive a lot longer than you might expect. They basically debuff units,
really good here. Really good here.
When they debuff an enemy target, that was some nice little luring Warcraft 3 style for Mystery Meat, by the way. But when the Herald debuffs an enemy target, it basically gives anybody attacking that unit shield steal. It's a small amount, but it's still something, and it definitely adds up over time with enough Heralds.
Well, it definitely will help if he keeps these Ecclesias alive and he gets some more like Amaranths. Then he can just force down this army. And he doesn't have to worry about anything else, just force it down. But, I mean, he might even be able to force it down now. There is a lot of Ecclesias here, but he's a little wary about that anchor on the ledge. The feet intimidate him. There's just pure Eidolons. Yeah,
it's mostly Eidolons. The Harakans are just there to buy space, you know what I mean?
Yep. So, just to get in the thing's ways when they try to unstealth them.
The rally point claims another soul. That's been a regular issue for Veek. I feel like maybe Mist also did it a few times, but I've noticed it more.
Second Witness would be great here. Just stick it on his army. Oh, there is one there actually, but
yeah, it's kind of stuck on top. Yeah,
like a little bit closer, just to stop these from getting so close. But he does manage to pick one off.
That's right. Problem is, you can't really close the distance. There's no more front line here, and that Witness almost died to the Cyprian fire. Oof, man, the Eidolon fadeaway just eviscerating. Oh, the battle workers at 9 o'clock. Mystery Meat finishes it and starts a stockade. I can't believe it, dude. Well, no, wait, hold on. That's actually, I thought he was just going to use that to scout, but thinking about it, that's a Nexus block. He's blocking the expand.
Yeah. Oh, but he's called in 4 of his Mexican brothers. Oh. The Hombres have arrived.
Yeah, fuck that stockade,
They brought their slippers. They're beaten. They're slapping.
It's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while. There is an Amaranth here, but it's not very much.
Whoa, hold on. We got Psystorm.
Yep, the Amaranth died to Psystorm and Ghost.
Yeah, the Eidolon fire just slapped them around.
Oh my god, the feet are flying. You know where they're going?
Yes! Yes! They're going to land over there!
This is the kind of shit that will unhinge a man. I can understand all of Veek's rage at this moment.
Oh, he's up by a good amount.
Shit like this.
Good amount of workers, but look at the Eidolon sniping the Cantavis. Great picks for Mystery Meat, using those snipers to their greatest effect.
There's so many Eidolons now, their numbers will just keep increasing. And
yeah, we need to see an Acantor or some other kind of splash damage, right? Yeah.
And it's just, they just are going to keep killing everything. And yeah, this is something I mentioned to some of the other TVP is when you've got the Eidolons, you got to look for those. If there's Cantavises and they come up, you just shoot them the moment they come up. And that is what Meat's doing. And this Nexus has started, and there is some Cyprians in there. If he sticks this on the ramp, he can shoot workers as they come up, or I guess he can just park it here, and well, now Veek has a minor annoyance. He's
sending some Amaranths. Yeah, we love that.
It's going to reach a point where Amaranth are not going to be sufficient, and I don't think Atreus is doing enough damage to threaten this army. But at the same time,
I guess a good number of Storms could work, right? Yeah. Like if you think about if those Cantavises hadn't died, like, Storm doesn't do that much damage, but Eidolons don't have that much health. So, even forgetting about them for a little bit,
to allow Atreus to succeed, basically.
Yeah. Well,
they do 10 damage. It's just not that much damage. But if the units are already all have health, then it will definitely make a difference. Meanwhile, inside of Meat's base, there was a Zealot attempting to do dirty things.
Yeah, he was just scouting around. He sees the 4th base come up, so Veek is aware that his opponent is on the same number of bases. The worker count still in our Protoss's advantage, but he's sticking it out with Gateway Grand Library. He's not actually pivoting to any higher tier of tech. Still no gas caps. And remember, I mean, one of the reasons why he's probably thinking that is because of the mineral-only base that he's taken as his 3rd. And it's a fair shout, but you got to think about what else you're going to be doing, and he's got a lot of minerals anyway. Big engagement here in the middle of the map. Eidolon's remaining untouched this whole time. No Cantavis, here it comes. Going for a Storm. That's going to be a pretty good one. That should slow this whole approach down, but maybe not by enough, as Mystery Meat narrowly avoids losing Eidolons. Never mind, one of them walked back into the Storm. Yep. But look at Ahmed just pushing everybody else back in the meantime.
Yeah, the Eidolons are the lifeline of the Terran army. You're not making too much progress until you're killing them all.
Yep.
And there's even a Savant in there adding his own mathematical equations. And as a result, although the rest of the Terran's army, except for a noble Ahmed, die, it's still all Eidolons, which are just, that's where the bulk of the damage is coming from. The others are kind of just there to take the heat off of them, add a little bit of extra damage, maybe some armor trade here or there. But in the meantime, Veek managed to do a little backdoor here, and the Atreuses have murdered some of Nablime's countrymen, and Ahmed is coming over there to prune these plants.
Well, the Eidolons still haven't been pushed back elsewhere on the map, so it's kind of this, like, this small-looking forces that you're looking at, and you're like, well, this... I mean, it's only like 10 Eidolons, bro. Like, is that really going to stop me? But apparently, I mean, there's not really that many units here. And look at that. Veek 7, he concedes. GG. Didn't want to even contend with those Eidolons.
It was at the point where he was going to have to wait to have an army that can actually, like, run into them and kill them.
Yeah.
But by that point, as you can see, Meat is already reinforcing.
Yes.
So Meat's kind of like looking over here and just murdering his shit.
I think he's like trying to figure out what he had.
Yeah, he's wondering what did he have, why did he leave at this point, and so on. But that's really what it was, is he didn't have any units. So he can't just make units and tickle them down. He needs something that's actually going to survive long enough to push them down. So he realized by the time that happens, it would have just been what was happening now, except maybe he tries to move his workers, but that base is basically forfeit anyways. So it was just a snowball at that point.
Well, that's a 3-0 for Mystery Meat to make it into the main event of Tyrant's Tale. He does not drop a single series, only 2 maps across the whole time. First to Dead Infested and second to Shopkeeper Dog. And I mean, those are some of the closest games I've seen Mystery Meat play. So really, I got to commend Veek for his play there. But unfortunately, even though he was ahead massively in the second game, he had room to maneuver in the first and definitely had some cool ideas for that third one. I think choosing to expand when he sees Cyprian first after Quarry first, that's probably where it all fell apart. I think he could have easily just run Mystery Meat over and, forced him to reconsider that opener, which he did do on Cold Sweat as well. So that might have maybe taken that entire opener out of rotation, and then he would have meaningfully reduced what Mr. Meat was comfortable doing going into the next map. Remember, the next 2 maps were 2 spawn maps. There were no 4 spawn maps in this rotation here, so it was just straight up Oblivion into Impetus for the final games. And I think that's worth noting because obviously Rageslave being 3 spawn, maybe that's why he decided to expand because he scouted him second, but yeah. That's one of those things where it's like, if you take that build out of contention, then you kind of know that you don't even have to rush anymore because you don't need to contest with like a macro greedy opener anymore. So I feel like that could have really helped him. But at the end of the day, he will be cast down to face off against Shopkeeper Dog in the lower qualification match, which at some point, Mesk, you and I will cast again later on. So some pretty cool stuff that will decide who makes it into the main event between those 2 players. And, I got to back my boy Veek, of course, but Shopkeeper Dog's been looking pretty strong. And I always love like a new player coming in and starting to do really well, right? That's always like a captivating storyline when somebody kind of comes in out of nowhere and starts playing well enough to dethrone some of the old guard. So it'll be an entertaining one no matter what. But any closing thoughts or words on Mystery Meat versus Veek 7, and also the fact that Mystery Meat will be then facing off against Nebline, who you mentioned earlier as if that was a matchup, then maybe Nebline would be able to really expose some of the weaknesses that Veek was not able to?
Yeah, I definitely think, because I've been every now and then I see Nebline in here at like 3 a.m. And sometimes Biddy B is here too. Just watching him play, usually against Arbuz at some weird ass hour in the morning that everybody should normally be asleep. And Nebline's been pretty sharp. He actually dropped some of those games, which is really fascinating to me because watching Nebline normally play is super strong, and then watching Arbuz against hit him up, none of the games I've seen Arbuz has taken, he's been close to taking some, but he hasn't. And but against Nebline, it seems like he's playing pretty strongly in a lot of those matches. And Nebline himself, of course, doing pretty well as well. I think Mystery Meat is definitely going to need to get some grind out to shake off some of that rust, because Nebline is definitely, I think he's been improving pretty steadily.
Yes.
And there's definitely a little bit of a gap to cross. But at the same time, though, I think one of Nebline's strengths is that he doesn't really seem to get shaken up when things go bad. I've seen Arbuz fast drop a Cantors on him and blow up half of the workers he has. And he doesn't really get too rattled with that. He still plays on the game. And that we kind of saw that a little bit within the second match here, where Mystery Meat was his initial Wraith harass was just a train wreck. It didn't really accomplish too much because Veek had the proper response for it. But he invested pretty heavily into it and wasn't able to get a lot of damage out of it, but he stuck to it and still had a game plan on how to transition off to it, which was eventually going into just mass phalanx. And it worked. And I think Veek was probably very surprised by that. I know I was surprised by that. I wouldn't expect that particular transition at all. I figured, well, he's either going to go drops, he might go mass bio, or he might just build some phalanx and some mix of stuff. But to go pure phalanx, that was pretty expensive. I mean, he'd already spent a lot of money to get the shamans and the wraiths and so on. So he definitely had game plans that came into here with the plan. It's just more the mid game and late game that the macro and money expenditure started to really slip a little bit. So it's definitely something for him to look at fixing. With Veek, it's hard for me to really describe my thoughts, but I feel like some of his struggles are in how he chooses to transition from one state of the game to the next, where there will be opportunities. That second game was really telling in particular how he really, really committed. He went to building all the Palladiums instead of being oh, you literally have nothing but phalanxes and static defense and shit right now. why don't I just build error, at least some amount of error, to just punish this and force you to respond to that entirely and just not interact with you in the place where you're strong. But he chooses to try to fight Mystery Meat up front, which ends up costing him a lot of the advantage from the early tempo he had in the game, and the fact he was able to not really bleed too much to the Wraiths, and also stop the Wraiths from really doing too much at the very beginning paces of the game either. And then it just kind of like started to get steadily out of control at that point, where we started having individual phalanxes with 30 kills constantly denying mining at an expansion that should probably have never been there for anywhere near that long. And Mystery Meat was just like, well, I guess I live here now, so I'm going to expand. And it's kind of like, things kind of like got a little out of hand. And it was mostly because Veek kind of like allowed them to get out of hand. And I feel like Veek is a little prone to frustration and tilting. I mean, we can see that in the chat alone, but I think it also shows in the games where it may, like, I feel like he would know, like, the answers to a lot of what happens in cases like this, especially since it's not something that kind of just, like, sprung out of nowhere. It was something that developed over time within the game. And then he might get into some kind of state where he's not able to, like, kind of, like, objectively reassess that situation and figure out, okay, what is actually the best answer to this? He kind of, like, defaulted into Catfax, which eventually he did manage to win a fight on one side of the map, but the much more critical part of the map was still like completely locked down by Mystery Meat, and it was just like this giant thorn in his ass, and he just never even really quite approached. And even towards the end of the game, it was still killing military units, dragging them into things, and killing workers, and just being like just this sink of attention, APM, and stress. I think it was just like slowly unraveling him. The third game was definitely better, but it felt like maybe he hasn't had to deal with like the mass Eidolon too much, and definitely felt like he had a right idea of going like mass Amaranth against it. But it also feels like Veek sometimes is a little too eager to fight. And when he went in, he had like one Amaranth, and that was, he needed more like 6 or 7 or 8 of them, plus all of his Ecclesias to still be alive. And then when you're microing the Cantavises against this, what I noticed what Nablime does a lot with is he actually uses them for a lot for disengaging.
Yeah, and you cover your retreat. I mean, think about it. The number of Eidolons that just sniped the Cantavises after one storm, maybe after no storm. You know, like,
they're going to do that. That's what you have to expect them to happen, is that they're going to be waiting to do that, because that's the whole point of them. So you don't want to be doing it when you're going to telegraph it. You want to do it to stick it between you, and then use that to disengage when it's like, oh, okay, I'm taking way more damage than I really should be. I'm going to disengage now. I don't want him to follow and punish me, so I'm going to drop Storm and then retreat behind that. But if you try to like run up to them, they have 9 range. They're just going to shoot you.
Yep. I think one of the things that you can take home from this one, if you're a player at home watching this at home, is that you think about the way that you want to engage the Eidolons to force them to kite back. That's your opportunity to storm when they're kiting backwards, because they're not really looking to start attacking anything other than the front line with a stutter step. So the cooldown's high enough, and most players are moving them all back in sequence enough. They're not really keeping some in reserve off cooldown, off to the side, like microing them or whatever. So until we get to that point, that kind of adaptation on a micro level might be good for sniping the Cantavis. But even then, I think you can account for that with positioning. It really just depends on the kind of engagement. And I feel like there was a number of times where Veek was looking at his forces after the engage had already started to happen from Mist's side, and that's because he was doing all the macroing and then also doing the raiding parties in the north and stuff. So that's just one of those things where I think it like kind of crept up on him. He was surprised to see the damage output of it, and part of that is also the witnesses getting sniped and stuff. I think once again he only built 2, maybe 3 this time, so just something for him to take a look at there. But we'll see what happens when we get into the next set. Mesk, thank you for joining me for this one. It was an hour 20, nice meaty cast for you guys at home. And we'll be back with another best of 5 to close out the qualifier and set the stage for our first event going forward. So GG, boys. Until next time.
Till next time, smoke weed every day, just a little.